birisi Amerika'dan. Okay, now two theorists today. One is from France, Louis Althusser, and the other is from United States, Eric Olin Wright. Now, both of them are continuations of Marx's approach, but in their own way, they transformed it. So one of them, Althusser, is a structural Marxist sociologist, whereas Eric Olin Wright is analytical Marxist sociologist. Maybe we can differentiate them. There are other variations as well, but just I have to point out these two contrasting approaches. One writing in 1960s and 70s, Louis Althusser. The work that I am going to talk today is published in 1970, the French version, and the English version is published in 1971. Now, Althusser tried to develop actually a theory of levels of society, levels of social formation. He called that social formation. Now, as you remember, in Marx, there is substructure and superstructure, two levels. And then in the superstructure, there is political and ideological, political, legal, and ideological. Now, Althusser continues with this, but he talks about three levels: economic level, political level, and ideological level. Three levels. Now, he also talks about the relationship between these three levels: economic, political, and ideological. So instead of saying that economic level determines political and ideological levels, a more macro level simplified version of Marxism is in that deterministic position. But in many places in Marx's own analyses, there is a reciprocal relationship. Political level also influences economic level, and ideological level also influences both political and economic level. Now, Althusser says that sometimes political and ideological levels, depending on the mode of production of the social formation, might be dominant, whereas economic level will be determinant. For example, in tribal societies, kinship relationships as an ideological structuring of the society, ideological is dominant. Kinship relations are dominant in the conditions of economic technological existence of those societies, tribal societies. In feudalism, for example, political level is dominant, economic level is determinant, but political level arranges even some economic institutional forms. For example, state fixes prices, etc. Now, the contribution of Louis Althusser to the theory is relative autonomy, the concept of relative autonomy. Now, I talk about the three levels. Now, in order for upper levels or superstructure in the Marxist terminology to be effective, they should have some autonomy from economic level, or ideological levels should have an autonomy from political as well as economic level. So relative autonomy, the concept of now autonomy is if the levels are autonomous, there are three independent levels not influencing each other, which is impossible. There is no such a society where ideological level, a society where there is only ideological level, or a society where there is only political level, or only economic level. No, all three of them exist. So the possibility is only a relative autonomy in the middle. In the other extreme, determination. One level determining all other levels. So if you think of a continuity, at one end, no determination, they are all independent, impossible. Other end, one level is determining the other levels, 100% impossible. So there will be some determination moving towards the middle, or there will be, so relative autonomy is somewhere in the middle, maybe closer to the determination pole of this continuum, because Althusser says that at the last instance, economic level is determined, whereas there are some other Marxist sociologists who say that no, economic level is not determinant all the time. There are times when it is determinant, but there are other times that it is not determinant. So there is a debate there among themselves. Okay, now this relative autonomy is one contribution. The second contribution is in the theory of state. Now, in the Marxist theory of state, state is conceptualized at two levels. One, state power. Two, state apparatus. State apparatus. Now, Althusser divides state apparatus into two, as repressive state apparatuses and as ideological state apparatuses. Ideological state apparatuses. Now, repressive state apparatuses are police in a society, army, government, bureaucracy, judicial system, law, that is law, judicial system. These are hardcore of the state. But there is also a soft core ideological institutions, actually. These are, these, Althusser calls them apparatuses, but in sociological terminology, they are institutions. What are these apparatuses or institutions? Family, for example. Educational institutions from all levels, from kindergarten up to university, PhD level, etc. Or mass media, newspapers, or political parties, even political parties. He puts them into ideological state apparatuses. What else? So he lists them, actually, all these ideological state apparatuses. Some of them I have already mentioned, but there are others as well. But he says that in feudal societies, religion and state is dominant. Religion and state are so the dominant ideological state apparatuses are religion, state, of course, and family. Religion and family. Whereas in modern societies, religion is replaced by school system, by educational system. So state educational apparatus, state educational apparatus, and family are two institutions which are dominant, whereas in feudal societies, of course, state is there always in both of them, but as apparatus, family, and religion. Okay, now, after this introduction to state theory, he says that, okay, then what are these ideological state apparatuses? Now, in order to understand the difference between repressive state apparatuses and ideological state apparatuses, we should have also a theory of ideology. A theory of ideology. Now, here also, he contributes into the conceptualization of ideology. With he advances three theses. Now, the first thesis that he advances is that is the definition of ideology. Actually, he says ideology represents imaginary relationship of individuals, imaginary relationship of individuals to their real conditions of existence. Now, all individuals, all families, all people are existing in a real world, in a real world of houses, fields, or in modern societies, factories, bureaucracies, organizations, cars, all instruments of production, communication, transportation. This is real conditions of existence. Now, how are people related to these real conditions of existence? Now, he says that human beings relate to their real conditions of existence, material, economic, political conditions of existence through ideology, through, that is, language and culture. Now, without language and culture, human beings cannot conceptualize their relationship. If they are conceptualizing, or if they are thinking about their relationship to real conditions of existence, Althusser says they have an imaginary relationship. They imagine themselves in relation to their house, their family, the fields they work, the transportation vehicles, everything else. It is through their imagination or their ideological conceptualization that they relate themselves with their real conditions of existence. Now, according to Althusser, all human beings are in an ideological world, like the fish. Fish is in the sea. In the same way that you cannot think of fishes, balık, outside of the sea. You cannot think of human beings outside of ideology, except when there is an ideological rupture, leaving ideology behind at the moments of scientific discovery, scientific findings. Only when a scientific operations are carried out, a scientist is able, through the methodology and theory of the science that they are operating, they are doing research, they are able to separate themselves, to break themselves from ideology and exist in a scientific world, scientific world of reality and concepts. Now, in that case, instead of ideology, now they see the reality through scientific concepts. But in everyday life, people see reality through ideological words, ideological concepts. Okay, they are not concepts. Yeah, science uses concepts. Everyday world, ideology uses ideological namings, ideological images, ideological languages, analogies, whatever, all the things that people use when they are communicating with each other or when they think about each other. Now, actually, what Althusser is saying is that ideology constructs subjects. Ideology transforms individuals into subjects. Now, think of a baby being born, learning a language and norms and values, etc. So that baby's baby is in a pre-subjective state, is being transformed with the ideology. Now, Althusser uses the concept ideology, but in sociology, we use culture. Culture. Through culture, the pre-subjective individuals are being transformed into subjects. Now remember Foucault. Foucault also moves from this point. Actually, Foucault and Althusser were working together during 50s, and then Foucault established his own approach. But they share this part that being a subject, constitution of a subject, how the subject is constituted through discourses, through discursive and non-discursive relationships, through the medium of power, etc. Of course, in Althusser too, there is this concept of power, which he already talked about his theory of state, power structures. Now, they differ from each other in terms of conceptualizing power, whereas Foucault conceptualized power as distributed throughout society into small channels, and it's everywhere, kind of. It is between two friends, between a student and a teacher, between a wife and a husband, parent and a child, etc., everywhere. Now, Althusser conceptualizes it as an hierarchical apparatuses. Now, Foucault also has this apparatus. He doesn't call it apparatus. He calls it panopticon institutions, panopticon disciplinary institutions. Okay, they start from a common point and then they differentiate. Now, the first thesis or first statement was that ideology represents the imaginary relationship of individuals to their real conditions of existence. Now, second thesis is that ideology is not just made of ideas. No, ideology has a material existence. Material existence. This is his second thesis, actually. Material existence, meaning the babies or people become ideological subjects through practices of paying respect to their parents, handshaking, going to the religious institutions, in all these ideological apparatuses. In each of them, subjects or individuals are subjected to the domination of that institution, subordination relationship of that institution, and through that subjectification, individuals become subjects, ideological subjects, or normal human beings. Normal human beings, he says, normal human beings they have their existences in these material practices. So he uses rituals, practices, and ideological apparatuses, and then he uses consciousness or belief, and others rarely. So this one of sub-statements of this material existence, ideology has a material existence, is that there is no practice except by and in an ideology. So all our actions, all our behavior, although he doesn't use action or behavior, instead of that, he uses practice. Practice. All practices are through an ideology and in an ideology and by an ideology. By and in an ideology. And the second sub-statement is that ideology exists through subjects. By the subjects, ideology exists through subjects and for subjects. Or his statement is, there is no ideology except by the subject and for the subjects. By the subject. So ideology exists through subjects. It doesn't have some independent existence up there, through subjects. Now, subjects are constituted by ideologies, but they exist through the subjects as they are constructed within ideologies. So here comes third thesis. Ideology interpellates. Okay, now this is a juridical term, interpellation. Ideology interpellates individuals into subjects as subjects. Ideology interpellates individuals into subjects as subjects. Now, what does that mean? Now, we said that ideology exists through subject and for the subjects. Now, here there is a call to each other. Now, subjects are calling ideology, being born into ideology, and ideology is calling individuals into subjects, constituting them into subjects. Now, interpellation is something like, for example, when you are walking on a street and when someone calls behind you, usually a police or somebody with the force of law, hey you, when you turn, now you turn as a subject. You are called, interpellated. You are called. You are at that moment. You as a subject of that state, and a state apparatus, one of the authorities of one of the state apparatuses, is calling you. So there is a relationship there, relationship of interpellation, entering into that relationship. So ideology is relational. It is relational. Actually, the book that the name of the book that he published, let me just show it to you very briefly, is Ideological State Apparatuses. Now, can I do it from here? Okay, just let me go here, and here is the book. Now you can see here ideology and ideological state apparatuses published in La Pensée in 1970, and then in 1971 in English. So it starts with reproduction of conditions of production, and actually Althusser asked the question, why capitalist social formations are reproducing themselves? Why are not changing in non-capitalist societies? Why they are reproducing themselves continuously? His answer is through state apparatuses and ideological state apparatuses, their continuity is ensured. And he goes into details of how this reproduction takes place at the level of productive forces and at the relations of production, the usual Marxist conceptualization, which you learned in second year, first semester when you were studying Marxist theory. And then he elaborates 3 levels of society, of social formation, and then he contributes to conceptualization of state and ideology. So here is the book. If you are interested in detail, you can go into it. Okay, now let me send this away, and let me introduce you to him, and for a few minutes, and then I will go into Eric Olin Wright. Now let me share my my page, my Blackboard page with you, and let me go to this video. Okay, here, and here it is. Althusser. This is in 1980.
Era una cosa inesperata. Allora, per me
this one is Althusser. He's talking in French, in England actually, in Rome. Italy.
Senti, com'è che Althusser è diventato Althusser?
Ma questo non ha nessun interesse.
La tua...
Puoi spiegarci qual è il tuo percorso?
Il mio percorso è molto semplice. Sono nato in Algeria. Mia madre era figlia di un piccolo contadino povero del Morvan, nel centro di Francia, che aveva scelto di andare in Algeria come garde forestier, come si dice? Guardia forestale. E mio padre era un figlio di alsacien, sì, un coppio di alsacieni che avevano scelto la Francia nel 71 e il governo francese li ha deportati, no? Deportati tutti alsazi in Algeria. E così mio padre e mia madre si sono conosciuti così. Ho vissuto fin 1930 in Algeria, dopo 6 anni in Marseille, dopo 3 anni in Francia, in Lyon, dopo ho fatto il soldato 1 anno, dopo sono stato prigioniero mandato in Germania, dove sono rimasto 5 anni, sono tornato, ho passato l'aggregazione di filosofia in 48 e sono rimasto alla scuola normale superiore come professore da questo tempo.
Senti, il tuo percorso intellettuale, culturale?
Percorso intellettuale. Ha passato tra due uomini, uno che si chiama Jean Guitton, che è molto colto, è stato l'amico di Papa Giovanni XXIII.
Un cattolico?
Sì, un cattolico, un filosofo cattolico, l'amico di Paolo VI, amico intimo di Paolo VI, che mi ha imparato a fare una dissertazione, a scrivere
Okay, so
Scrivere un
I
saggio,
have
fare una tesi.
Una tesi?
No,
introduced
dissertazione.
you to
Una
him.
tesi.
Scrivere,
If you like,
fa in tesi, no, un
tema,
copy,
tema,
una
tema.
copy.
might listen
Sì, un tema
to
di
him.
scuola. E l'altro era un professore di
So
storia che si chiamava
his
Joseph
parents
Mours,
went to
che era un uomo
Algeria.
stupendo, perché quando lo ascoltavo
Did I
negli anni
make this kind of
34, 33,
let me
4,
stop it
5,
first.
no, poi più tardi diciamo, no, 36, 38, 36, 37,
Just a minute.
39, ci spiegava ciò che è avvenuto. La guerra,
Okay. Ah, why did I do that? Sorry. Okay, now, as he talks here, his parents were, his mother or his mother's family went to Algeria, Jazair, Algeria. Algeria was a French colony at that time in his childhood as a forest worker, and his father was deported because of his some political activities to Algeria. They met there and he lived there until 12 years old, from 1918 to 1930. And then he came to France for his education, etc. And then during Second World War, he's captured by the German forces, and he was as a captive for 4 years. And then after the war, he came back and completed his thesis, but he met his wife, they are married, and his wife converted him into Marxist approach. But unfortunately, when he was during 80s, he strangled his wife accidentally, or at a moment of he doesn't remember actually. So he was put into mental hospital for that, and he died miserably and alone. But he made contributions. His students, friends continued doing research and contributing, like Foucault, or like there are other sociologists in England, in America, in France, in Germany. So this is the first sociologist. He was a 20th century sociologist, actually, from 1918 to 1990. From 1918 to 1990. Whereas, for example, Marx is just opposite of this. Marx is a 19th century. Althusser is 20th century. 20th. Let me correct myself. Althusser is a 20th century thinker, sociologist, social scientist, okay? Whereas Marx is a 19th century, from 1818, so Marx was born 100 years before Louis Althusser, and he lived up to 1883, 19th century. Louis Althusser, 20th century. You are 21st century, actually. I am the second half of 20th century and first 25 years, let's say, hopefully first 30 years of 21st century. Okay, now let me come to Eric Olin Wright. Eric Olin Wright. Now, Eric Olin Wright is born in 1947, so the middle of 20th century, and he lived up to 2019. So he died 4 years ago. 4 years ago, and actually in the same year, we also lost Wallerstein. Wallerstein and Eric Olin Wright, both of them died in 2019, and both of them were very much related to my academic work, actually. I told about Wallerstein a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I think. And now I am going to talk about Eric Olin Wright. Now, I have written actually in my Facebook page about both of them, and maybe I can also in my what do you call blog spot. I have a blog spot. Let me just share it with you. Maybe you haven't seen it. Again, let me go here, and it is here. Let me just share it. In general, name is Sociological Theories, Research, and Interpretations. So two sociologists that we lost in 2019, Immanuel Wallerstein and Eric Olin Wright. And I talk about my relationship with Eric Olin Wright here. Actually, in 1991, Eric Olin Wright and his, let me say, those social scientists, sociologists, working in the scientific program that he developed, a kind of paradigm of class structures and class consciousness. Now, together with a PhD student of mine, Hayriye Erbaş, and my colleagues Yakın Ertürk and Yusuf Ziya Özcan, we tried to apply this approach to Kırıkkale and Ankara cities, to compare it with Eric Olin Wright's America and Sweden, France, and other countries. So in 1991, together with Hayriye Erbaş, we went to Granada in Spain in 1991 and presented our paper in this 7th International Conference of comparative project on class structure and class consciousness. So Eric Olin Wright was very active in organizing these research groups throughout the countries. Now, let me go into details. Let me send this away and let me go into his conceptual framework, how he developed a scientific research program that many people from different countries joined him to do comparative work. Now, he started again with the Marxist model, but as you remember, Marxist model takes as the criterion of classes ownership of means of production. So property relationships is main variable, main criteria for thinking of classes. So in terms of means of ownership of means of production, there are owners of means of production, there are non-owners of means of production, non-owners and two classes. But even Marx himself talks about petty bourgeoisie, peasantry, feudal class, other classes, although basically in capitalist societies are two-class societies, owners of the capital or means of production and non-owners of means of production, but owners of labor power. They own their own labor power, two classes. But Eric Olin Wright says this is not enough for the analysis of contemporary societies. So he tries to develop a more elaborate class structure analysis through a more analytical approach. An analytical approach. Now, I said that Althusser is a structuralist Marxist, whereas or neo-Marxist, whereas Eric Olin Wright is an analytical neo-Marxist, because at that time in United States, he's a sociologist from United States. He first completed Harvard College in 1968. Then he went to England, Oxford, and he had a BA, MA in Oxford, and he gets his PhD from Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley, in 1976. Now, 1970s. Remember that Althusser wrote this book in 1970 about ideological state apparatuses. In 1970, it is published in 1970. So earlier, actually. So 1960s, both in France and in America, United States, there was a renewal, a development or adoption of Marxist approach into sociology in both countries or in many other countries as well. 60s was such a period. If you remember, from Immanuel Wallerstein. He called 1968 a revolution as important as French Revolution, or as important as Russian Revolution, Bolshevik Revolution, or Turkish Revolution, or Chinese Revolution, and 1968 is important at the global level because it took place in all countries. So Althusser as well as Eric Olin Wright are products as well as producers of that era, of that 1968 movement. Actually, I would say that Althusser perhaps was a participant in producing 1968 movements, whereas Eric Olin Wright was a product, influence from 1968 anti-war movement in the United States when he was a student at that time at Berkeley. Just he graduated from Harvard, and then during 70s he was at University of California, Berkeley. So he wrote a thesis on class structure and income inequality. Income inequality. Actually, at the same time, there were those, for example, Michael Buroway also has written about organizational consent at the University of Chicago. For example, Roger Friedland, Class Power and Central. So there was this Marxist adoption of Marxist approach by various contemporaries of Eric Olin Wright, who were together in a group of analytical Marxist group. Now, analytical meaning adopting a quantitative approach, a quantitative positivistic framework, but modifying it and making it in such a way that one can test hypotheses that one can derive from the theory. So, for example, in 1978, he has written a book called Class, Crisis, and State, and there he talks about, how different variables in society are causally related to each other, and how they can be operationalized. He's talking about, for example, production, non-production, production, reproduction, transformation, structural limitation. These kinds of relationships between economic structure, state structures, and political consciousness. Now, he has written a second book in 1985. Now, this one is called Classes. Now, in this book, he shows these limitations in relationship to each other. Let me just show it to you. And then, before I go there, let me state that what he focuses upon, as I said, is class structure. Okay, now in Marx, there are locations, class location of the capital owners and labor power owners, or non-owners of capital and owners of capital. But in modern societies, there are contradictory class locations. There are those who are closer to the location or position of the worker, and there are those who are closer to the position, location of the capitalist or capital owner. So then, from the Marxist basic classes, he moves to middle class, and then contradictory class locations, and then he tries, as I said, develop three criteria in addition to ownership of means of production. Now he adds organizational control as a second criterion, second variable, and as a third variable, he adds professional expertise, professional skills, or he says scarce skills and expertise, how that also leads to class fractions. Now, organizational control also leads to class fractions. Ownership or non-ownership of means of production also leads to class fractions. So he combines these three. Now, let me take you to the book and show you through some tables and graphics that he develops. Okay, now let me share again his book, this on classes. Now here it is. Let me see. As you can see here, let me show this bottom as well. Let me move a little bit. Okay, now you see better. So there is a class structure here as an independent variable. And then its relationship with class formation, class struggle, and class consciousness, and how each of these dependent variables are related to each other, and how are they related to the structure. You see, the relationship between class structure and class struggle, there is two-way relationship. There is from class structure to class struggle, but there is also a relationship, a causation from class structure, from class struggle to class structure, because as a result of struggling, they might change the structure. There is a possibility of change. Now, this one, actually, this was a graph from previous book, 1978. Now, from this book, I would like to show first the basic classes that is drawn from Marx, and then his more detailed classes. First, let me show you. Here it is. Now, this table. Now, as you can see here, he's trying to understand contradictory class locations here. Now, there are two basic classes, capitalists and workers. But there are also petty bourgeoisie and managers in between. This is a beginning of his typology. He calls it initial typology of class structure in the development of concept of contradictory class locations. So what are these two criteria? One is ownership of means of production, yes and no, yes and no, and supervision of the labor of others. Second, so in this table, two variables are ownership or self-employed or not self-employed. Self-employed means I mean, employing others as well, but they have their own capital, self-employed. So actually, this variable is ownership of means of production, yes and no. Supervision of them, yes and no. So capitalists are both, they have their means of production, and of course, they supervise workers. Now, managers, they don't have means of production, but they supervise. So no to means of production, yes to supervision is definition of managers. Managers, no, they don't have means of production. They are not self-employed. They are employed by the capitalists, but they have supervision, management of the workers under them. Whereas those who, again, like capitalists, has means of production, capital, but they don't supervise workers because they are self-employed. They are self-employed. Their own land, just enough for themselves without employing any workers, or if employ some workers seasonally, few workers, or craftsmen, or traders, small traders and craftsmen. They own their workplace, their land, but they don't employ workers. So they are owners, but not supervisors. Now, workers are both in terms of ownership. No, they don't have any ownership, and they don't supervise others. They are themselves workers. But now, when you introduce a third variable, skills, now this four categories is developed into 12 categories. Now let me show you that table, and that is in page 78. Maybe I am already there. There I am. No, already I passed away. Let me come back to it. Here it is, I hope. Okay, I am very close to it, 88. Okay, here is the table, but we cannot see this as such, so I have to turn it around. Okay, let me turn it around upside now. Let me do it once more. And if I do it once more, okay, here it is. Now here is this 12. There are 12 cells now. Now 4 columns and 3 rows. 4 columns and 3 rows. Now, in terms of One, ownership of capital. Ownership of capital. Owners and non-owners. Okay, two categories. In terms of sufficient capital to hire workers, but must work. So employers own sufficient capital, but do not hire workers. Petty bourgeoisie. So here into the owners category, it became instead of two, bourgeoisie and petty bourgeoisie, now small employers are added. So big employers, small employers, and non-employers or employers of themselves. Employers of themselves. So three owners of production in relationship to their own labor or capital, their own labor and their own capital. So owning labor, but only working with their own labor, or owning capital, but only their own labor, or their own plus employing laborers. Now, non-owners are paid by the owners, the factory owners, the capital owners, not if you have some money in stock market, you are also a part of owners. So owners are divided in terms of one in terms of skill. Now there are three categories: those who have better skills, education, or Bourdieu, remember Bourdieu, cultural capital. Now, they have cultural capital, or they don't have cultural capital, or in the middle. So these three columns are in terms of ownership of cultural capital. Now these three categories, the rows are in terms of organization assets. Those who control labor of others, those who does not control labor of others, or those who does not control, who control less, 0 point plus up here, minus up here. Organizational assets and skills. Two criteria. These two criteria classify these nine classes, 9 non-owners, non-capital owners, but some of them are closer to the owners, some of them are closer to the workers, non-owning workers. Okay, so non-owners are divided into 9 class fractions. Now, what are they? Now, in terms of organizational assets, expert managers have control in the organization. They might even be a CEO. Now, CEOs can be owners or non-owners. Non-owners. Capital is owned by others, but CEO or CEO might own partial owners, or not owning at all, but they are expert managers and have control over workers. So they are closer to these owning class, actually. Now, in terms of organizational assets, there are those, again, supervising others, but expert supervisors. Now, the number of workers expert managers are supervising is 10 times more, perhaps, of the workers that expert supervisors supervise, whereas expert non-managers, now they are also supervisors, but they don't have any managing position at the floor level in the factory, perhaps. Now, if we go to the next column, now these are in the middle, actually, in terms of credentials, skill. Now, these people have skills, educational capital. Now, actually, let's go to the opposite. Now, these people does not have educational capital, but their relationship to control of their position in the organization, Now, uncredentialed managers, they don't have educational capital, but they are managers. So closer, as being in the management, closer to the owners, although they are non-owner. Now, in the second category, uncredentialed supervisors. Now, these are supervisors, this level are all managers, supervisors, and these two categories, workers, and this is also manager. So here, uncredentialed supervisors are senior workers, skilled workers, whereas semi-credentialed supervisors have some technical education and technical level education, whereas expert supervisors are university educated. You can concretize it in that way. Uncredentialed supervisors and proletarians or workers. And these are in the middle categories, semi-credentialed managers, semi-credentialed supervisors, and semi-credentialed workers. These are half of the two variables that we are talking about, or in terms of skills or educational level and the position in the organization. Now, this is a detailed class structural analysis where there are some classes which has contradictory locations. Now, bourgeoisie and small employers, they are basic classes. They don't have contradictory location. Workers, they don't have also contradictory location. But the rest are classes in contradictory locations. And this is Eric Olin Wright's contribution in the analysis of developed capitalist countries. Now, in order to show you, what this kind of analysis contributes to research findings, let me show one of the tables that he uses in this book, Classes, the data from United States and Sweden. As I said later, the data from Germany, from France, from Japan, even from Turkey. My student and myself, we did a research in Kırıkkale and Ankara, and I talked about this to you when I was talking about the class structure in the social structure of Turkey last year, second semester. I talked about Hayriye Erbaş's research in Kırıkkale and Ankara, and I told you that it comes from Eric Olin Wright's conceptualization of contradictory classes, basic classes, and basic class locations and contradictory class locations. Okay, now let me go to this table, which there are many tables actually, which compares these 12 class fractions, basic classes and contradictory class locations in two countries. What are the percentages cooperatively? What are the percentages in United States and in Sweden? What are the percentage distribution of labor force? So I have to go now turn this in a normal position. Now this is the normal position. Let me go to maybe here. Now, let me see. Where am I? Okay, now 995. 995, maybe here. No, 43, let's a little bit more. Maybe here. No, a little bit more. Maybe here. 83, okay, now very close. Okay. Now, okay, here it is. Now, remember that table that we have seen, owners and non-owners. Oh, sorry, I might have. Why does that happen? Okay, here. Okay. Owners, non-owners, organizational assets, owners, non-owners of organizational assets, educational capital, skill and credentials, owners, non-owners. So what are the percentages? Now, questionnaire is applied to 1,487 persons in United States and 1,179 persons in Sweden. So when we look at the percentages, now only 1.8% are in bourgeoisie in United States, and 0.7, even under 1%, even less than 1%, but close to 1%. So 1.8 and close to 1%. Now, how about employers, small employers? In United States, 6%, and Sweden close to 5%. And petty bourgeoisie, those who own their own workplace, their capital, but do not hire workers, 7% in US and 5.4%. Now, if we think of the workers, now the opposite category, bourgeoisie, the first category, proletarians, workers are the second category. The majority in both countries, in United States, 40%, 39.9%, 40% are non-owners of capital, their organizational asset, their position in the they have no position in the organization, and their education is elementary education. It doesn't give them any skill or any credentials in terms of their skills and knowledge. 40% and 43%, close. But it seems that in Sweden, there are more of those. So this is from 1980s, maybe now, because from 1970s onward, in Sweden, there is a social democratic government where workers are more prominent. So it might be that the proportions might have changed. Now, those in the middle, contradictory class locations, if we look at them, now, for example, uncredentialed supervisors, more in United States, less in Sweden, uncredentialed. Uncredentialed managers are more or less equal, as you can see. In terms of semi-credentialed, distributions are in Sweden, semi-credentialed workers again more, as you can see, and expert non-managers are more. So if you add this up, 6.8, 17.8, and 43, these are, closer to the pole of workers, these ones. And maybe you can also add these ones, whereas these ones are closer to the employers' bourgeoisie part. And actually, in other tables, they try to show to which one they are closer. For example, this one is the previous table, adding man and woman division, etc. Okay, I will not go into more detail. Let me send this away, and let me go briefly into second subject that Eric Olin Wright brought into attention. But before doing that, he brought our attention to the past condition and the present condition. Now, in order to show that, I would like to share with you a presentation on class structure. The presentation is titled Understanding Class. Now, let me share that with you and show him. You will see himself talking about class structure and his presentation of with graphics how managers and workers are related to each other at different periods at different periods of capitalism. Now, one thing. Another, how different sociologists conceptualize. Three basic conceptualizations of class. Actually, Eric Olin Wright combines these three basic approaches. Now, let me just show you, just allow me to share this with you. Now, here I come, and this is the video, Understanding Class. It is a presentation in Rosa Luxemburg Foundation.
Okay, understanding class. The first part of the lecture is going to concern how we can bring into articulation different traditions of class analysis. And this is, there we go.
Okay,
how can we
the
produce an
subtitle.
integrated class analysis that brings into alignment the Marxist, Weberian, and what some people call the Durkheimian.
Okay, Marxist,
tradition of class
Weberian, and
analysis.
Durkheimian, three approaches.
And I'll begin this
Now, let me
by talking about
show you,
the relationship between the idea of inequality and the idea of class. And I'll do this through two stories, two parables.
Okay, now I will not go
First
into
parable.
details.
You all know the story.
Now I will show you
Aesop's fable of the grasshopper
in
and the ant.
1979.
So if
now,
just to refresh your memory,
here.
the story of the grasshopper and the ant. It's summertime. The living is easy. The grasshopper sees the ant.
Okay, now here there is this poster where it says, there is a fence here, a fence separating owners and non-owners, in a sense, two classes. Now, class consciousness is knowing which side of the fence you are on, which side. Now, class analysis is figuring out who are there with you on your side, or as your adversary. Now, I think this is a good poster he used this poster. Now, let me go to the three levels in 25. Now, three approaches and three levels of these approaches. Now, here, where is it? Somewhere here. Let me see. Just here. Okay, now
the tax rate should be, where the road should be built. I mean, all the things that people and groups fight over once the rules of the game are set. The stake in the conflicts of what game to play, it's capitalism versus socialism. The rules of the game the stakes are what kind of capitalism. What should be the rules that govern the operation of capitalist markets, labor markets, and other features of capitalist economic structures. And the stakes in actual capitalisms. Marxian class analysis tells us the adversaries.
Okay, now, as you can see here, I don't know, can you see it? Let me see. Let me make it larger so that you can see it better. Okay, now, three approaches, Marxist, Weberian, and Durkheimian. Now, what, for example, in terms of what are the stakes in the conflict between them, from Marxist point of view, capitalism and socialism, workers more towards socialism, owners more towards capitalism. Weberian approach talks about varieties of capitalism, and Durkheimian approach looks at the immediate economic interests. But let's look at the first column. Now, Marxist approach analyzes at the system level, whereas Weberian approach at the institutional level, and Durkheimian approach at the situational level. Now, in terms of political form of the conflict, Marxist approach, revolutionary versus counter-revolutionary. Weberian reformist versus reactionary. Durkheimian interest group politics. So this is how he compares three approaches. Now, his approach is mainly Marxist, introducing some Weberian elements, and also at the situational level, at the micro level, when working at the micro level or middle level, Durkheimian. Now, you might listen to this, it is not very long. It is something like 45 minutes, was it, or something like that, less than an hour actually. Now, let me show you how at the varieties of capitalism, how at different types of capitalism, how the relationship between employers and workers change. So let me take you to further somewhere here. Maybe I can now. Okay. Now, sorry. Okay. Now I can take you to this point here. Okay, now here, at the horizontal axis, working class power. At the vertical axis, realization of class interests. Now, as the working class power is minimum, the power of capitalist class is maximum. But when working class power, because of the unionization and organization, is increasing in terms of realizing their class interests, then the power of capitalist class is decreasing. But then at a certain period, as the power of workers gets stronger, interestingly, the realization of interests of employers also increase. Now, this is a win-win situation, So in this region, both. Now, this is the period of capitalism where there are concessions between two classes. Now, employers and workers, unions of both of them, come together and bargain the minimum wage or whatever, I think in Turkey, for example, at present, there is discussion of that minimum wage, where what will be the level of minimum wage, because if minimum wage is lower, profit of employers is higher. If minimum wage higher, profit is lower. So it is inversely related. But in the period between 1930s up to the middle of 1970s, this was the situation. But welfare state period, this is welfare state, refah devleti period. But later, Thatcherism and Reaganism, Thatcherism in England, Reaganism in the United States and in the rest of the world came, and this relationship changed. Now, here, let me show it to you. Now, actually, before, okay, let me go there. Maybe here it is. Okay, now, now actually, this was in a period of welfare state, where both classes gain. But if there was a situation never existed, or existed only in Soviet Union, China, the socialist countries, where workers are dominant, then employers decrease, of course, or there are only small owners, petty bourgeoisie. But now, for example, in China, there are also big employers. Anyway, but in Western countries, with globalization and with structural adjustment policies, what happened is there is a shift. That is, employers, capital owners, so workers lost power further and further, and capitalist class gained because here there is privatization, and the rules are more and more deregulated. Deregulation of the rules. Now here, you are not able to read this. Let me see whether I can make it bigger so that it can be readable. So you see, as a result of effect of financialization and globalization, the shape of the curve starts going this way. Now, next, actually, let me go to the next one, where, okay, just a minute. This is 38. Now, am I there? 38 or 40, maybe here. Let me stop this here. 41. Okay, just 1 minute more. Let me show it to you. Okay, now.
And this is where the ordinary strategies of daily mundane politics and economic struggles take place. And in the golden age, the modal European country was somewhere on the upward sloping part of the curve. Okay, now we're in the current era of stagnation and crisis.
Okay,
how should we
talk about already this
this
part. Now
Again, here's the golden age. What
Okay.
happens when we get
Now-
neoliberalism, globalization?
Okay.
What
Now,
should we do
actually,
if we wish to reverse this? Well, this is a little
we were already here.
mechanical,
Let me go
sort of the best I can do.
further.
That will shift the modal country towards
Now
the
this
right-hand
shift-
side of the curve. And we need to democratically regulate finance and strengthen the geographically rooted character of capital accumulation.
Okay, so he's talking about, what can we do to move this back again? To move back. Huh? This move through globalization and structural adjustment policies and neoliberal policies, as I showed you, it moved in this. Now, can we reverse it? Now, we can reverse it, he says, if we democratically regulate finance sector, and strengthen geographically rooted capital accumulation. Capital accumulate, regulating, taxing capital. Now, as you know, at the present moment, something like more than 50% of world's richness, wealth is owned by 1% of the world's population. Now, that is when this was reversed in this direction. Still there. Now, maybe by moving in this curve, that is strengthening democratically those non-owning classes, bargaining for more minimum wage, more and more minimum wage. Yes, less profit, but more and more sharing the wealth. Okay, I think now this part is enough. Let me send this away. And okay, the second contribution Eric Olin Wright did was on real utopias, realistic utopias. Now, just a minute. Didn't I send this away? Yes, I did. Just a minute. Here I am. Now, the second part of his contribution, as I said, is real utopias. Now, what are real utopias? He thinks that, for example, Wikipedia is distribution of knowledge to more and more people, while many of the books, especially books in English, are very difficult to buy, etc. Now, through Wikipedia, you might get some of those books. Wikipedia is an open, collaborative online encyclopedia, and it is a movement towards a utopian equal access to knowledge. One example. Another example is public libraries. if you cannot buy books, you know, poor people cannot buy books, but they can go to public libraries, where again knowledge can be shared. Uh, the access to knowledge again is made easier, and there are worker-owned cooperatives, cooperatives. But he talks about participatory budgeting at the municipalities level. Now, each municipality, now in many municipalities throughout the world, now this is being practiced, and Eric Olin Wright and his friends, Brovoy and others, studied this. Uh, uh, Now, in the neighborhoods of a city, uh, people gather together and have discussions about the priorities, how to spend in the next year, how to spend while making the yearly budget of municipality, in each municipality next year, how to, what are the priorities. Now, in those cities where this participatory budgeting is carried out, uh, more and more of resources started going to poor neighborhoods. Whereas without participatory budgeting, uh, the facilities go into, in an controlled way, or the struggle with the municipal administrators, and people results in such a way that less of the resources go into poor neighborhoods. So instead of waiting for a future equalitarian society, Eric Olin Wright says, we can work to improve the conditions of poor people. For example, there is a worldwide demand about basic income, unconditional basic income. But unfortunately, for example, this unconditional basic income is voted in a referendum in Switzerland, and some 40% of the population said, okay, all people should have a basic income, unconditional basic income. So there will be no hungry people. But unfortunately, those who were against unconditional basic income was more than 50%, so it was rejected. But there are some countries where this unconditional basic income is being discussed to be implemented. Hopefully, this will be more and more countries will be talking about this unconditional basic income. Okay, I think I tried to discuss with you two theorists today. One from France, Althusser, as a structural Marxist, and one from United States as an analytical neo-positivist Marxist, neo-Marxist. Both of them continue in the framework of Marxist sociology, but one is more in France, structural linguistics and structural anthropology was more dominant, and hence Althusser moved in that direction and influencing Foucault and Bourdieu and others. Actually, Althusser influenced them, whereas the analytical school analytical Marxist school in United States contributed to emergence of a sociologist like Eric Olin Wright, or Michael Borroway and others who studied class structure in their own countries and in other countries in a comparative class structure analysis. As when we were discussing Bourdieu, he did a class structure analysis in France. And I mentioned, for example, his lecture in Japan, how comparing Japanese class structure and French class structure, or in other countries, similarly. So maybe Eric Olin Wright and Bourdieu also can be compared in terms of class analysis. As you remember, Bourdieu was also synthesizing Marxist, Weberian, and Durkheimian approaches. And as I have shown you, Eric Olin Wright is also combining this Marxist, Weberian, and Durkheimian approaches. Okay, so today this was two